In my experience, most of the issues that other hikers have with dogs on the trail are not dog problems, but dog owner problems. Failure to keep your dog under control is only likely to increase the overall distaste for dogs on the trail. That's why it's important to know that as a dog owner, you are an ambassador for all of us who travel with dogs on the trail. And it's your responsibility to set a good example for all of those who come behind you. In this video, I'm going to share with you how you can avoid conflict and have a more enjoyable experience while hiking with your dog on the Appalachian Trail. Let me start by saying that I am not a perfect dog owner, and Garvey is not a perfect dog. However, I've found that being respectful of others and being low impact can go a long way when bringing a dog on the trail. A couple years back, I was at a dog-friendly hostel and just so happened to be checking in at the same time as two other groups traveling with dogs. We were told by the owner to keep our dogs out of a certain area so that we could avoid conflict with his own personal dog. Not 10 minutes later, one of those dogs was running around unattended exactly where it wasn't supposed to be. That dog ended up peeing on somebody's backpack. Meanwhile, the dog's owner was completely oblivious to his dog's actions and its whereabouts. Now, this entire situation could have been avoided by simply closing the cabin door and keeping the dog inside. Instead, they disrespected the owner by ignoring his rules. They disrespected those of us who were following the rules. And they disrespected the hiker whose pack was peed on because now this person suffers downtime and the expense of cleaning his pack through no fault of his own. And by the way, if your dog destroys someone else's gear, be prepared to immediately replace that gear and compensate them for any costs associated with your dog's actions. Once again, respect and low impact go a long way. Set a good example and follow the rules. Don't sneak a dog in where they're not allowed. And if dogs are required to be on a leash, then keep them on a leash. Now, there's so much to talk about here that in the future I'm going to be doing a video just on leashes. But for the time being, let me go over a few points as to why it's a good idea to keep your dog on a leash. No matter how friendly your dog is, some people are just afraid of dogs and they won't hesitate to pepper spray a charging dog. I knew a thru hiker who was bit by a dog on his hand as he approached Flint Mountain Shelter. His hand was bleeding, and he told me how the owner made no attempt to restrain his dog or even offer an apology. Had this hiker decided to press charges against the dog's owner, they most likely would have been federal charges due to the fact that the entire AT is located on federal land. Something to consider before letting your dog off a leash. Practice responsibility to avoid liability. Now, on the flip side, if you have an overly friendly dog, it's probably not a bad idea to keep it leashed around other people also. Nobody likes a muddy, stinky, wet dog rolling around on their sleeping bag or gear. Nowadays, if Garvey is hiking off leash, it's my policy to keep him behind me and not allow him out in front. And he's always clipped in where he's required to be. Other places that I automatically leash him are road crossings, road walks, approaching other hikers or dogs on the trail, approaching shelters or campsites, areas with animal activity, near springs or water sources, and always in town. The more you leash your dog, the less likely there is to be conflict, and the happier everybody will be. The other large complaint that I hear over and over about having dogs on the trail is people who don't clean up after their dogs. A few years back at the Nantahala Outdoor Center, I heard firsthand from other hikers how they checked into their bunk room and there was dog feces underneath one of the bunks left by the previous occupants. Even though Garvey wasn't responsible for that, he could have been blamed for it because he has before. And that's why I'm constantly cleaning up after other dogs. I was at a hostel last year and Garvey did his business on the lawn. I didn't have a bag with me, so I asked the owner if he would give me a bag so I could clean up after my dog. Not only was he happy to give me a bag, he was in shock because he said nobody ever cleaned up after their dogs, they just left it there. Not cleaning up after your dog is not only disrespectful, but it's high impact. the complete opposite of what we're trying to achieve here. So whether you're in town, at a hotel, at a hostel, in a shelter, or walking down the trail, please clean up after your dogs. Now, a quick note on staying in shelters. Now, while I rarely stay in shelters nowadays, I have stayed in shelters in the past. In fact, I've stayed in the shelters with people who are watching this video right now. It's always a good idea to ask if your dog is welcome in the shelter. Some people may have allergies or a fear of dogs or a number of reasons why they don't want your dog in the shelter with them. Many times when approaching a shelter, people would invite me to stay inside. And if someone arrived at a shelter after I did, I was always prepared to leave if they had a problem with Garvey being there. Nowadays, I am of the opinion that it's better to stay away from shelters altogether, especially when traveling with a dog. It's all about respect. So let's do a quick recap here and go over a few of the points we've discussed. Respect others and practice low impact. Set a good example. Follow the rules. Leash your dog where required and around other people. Keep your dog away from other people's gear. Clean up after your dog. Ask before bringing a dog into a shelter, hostel, or a business. Camp away from crowds. As usual, there are probably things that I'm forgetting here. However, I always look forward to positive, constructive comments. And if you'd like to add to the discussion, please leave your suggestions down below in the comments section. Now, as I've mentioned before, this is going to be an ongoing series, and the next videos coming in this series are going to be tips and tricks, how I'm putting all of this into action on the trail. Once again, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, thanks for hitting that thumbs up, and we'll see you down the trail.